port and helix pump. As the fuel comes up from the tank, which goes through the primary filter, it's on the vacuum side to the transfer pump. Transfer pump pressure is anywhere from 25 to 30, depending. The fuel will come up, flow into here, into the spill fill ports. So the transfer pump, pressure 25-30 comes out the outlet side of the transfer pump, which then goes to the secondary fuel filter. And from the secondary fuel filter, fuel comes up through the inlet ports here, which then gets filled through the spill ports, which are right here. The metering amount of fuel is actuated by the governor. So as the governor rotates, or the cam, I guess, sorry, rotates, and the governor spins on the flywheel here, and on the flywheel, on the weights spin. It's controlled also by spring pressure, which activates the rack, as you can tell by it moving in and out. So the operator can only control spring pressure on the governor. Can't control anything else. That's all it can do to meter its fuel. So when the rack opens and closes, or moves back and forth the way it's doing now, activates on a little pinion right here. And the pinion, it spins the plunger left or right to largen, or to, so as it spins, it shortens or lengthens the effective stroke of the helix cut, which is on the plunger here. So when the fuel comes into the spill fill port, depending where the governor is at the time, the plunger will rotate on for the helix cut, which will meter the amount of fuel. So when the fuel is cut in or comes in, as the plunger moves up or down, so when it comes up now, it's, so as the plunger starts coming up, starts compressing the fuel, the helix cut is cut in a certain way for BOI, so it rotated at a certain way right here. That's beginning of injection. So as we come to the top of the plunger compressing the fuel, it comes down, the helix will rotate, so it's on its vertical groove. That way it'll stop the fuel flow from coming in. The fuel come out the top here, out into the fuel lines, which are equal length or thick walled seamless tubing, which will then go to your injector. So if you have if your injector is a multi-port injector, multi-hole injector, you're going to have anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 psi. That's what will come out the tip. Another thing is the fuel gallery here. The pressure is regulated at 25 to 30 due to the fuel line return restriction. So that's kind of the basic understanding of this pump. Everything has a 1 to 3 micron clearance in here, so extremely tight clearance. So on the governor here, when it rotates, the weights come out, and it also presses on the spring here. So this is the so the weights open up, and it also counteracts on the governor control spring. So as you can see, when we do it, little weights come out, control the rack, which moves the plunger to control how much actual fuel is going to be allowed to be delivered to the top of the plunger for compression of fuel. So as I was saying before, when it's completely compressed and we've had end of injection here coming up, the spill fill ports will be in line again with the vertical groove, which then will let return fuel come out to the return fuel line, which will then lead back to the tank. Right here, so it'd be under this cap you'd pull off, is where you'd have your screws for max and min. Right here, these two. So maximum would be the amount that the operator would be allowed to control the throttle here. So to operate the spring, probably somewhere around 2200, I imagine. And then we'd adjust this one for idle screw here, so that gives them proper idle, probably anywhere from 5 to 700 RPM. So yeah, I don't know if I mentioned, but the plunger sits inside the barrel. The barrel always stays the same. Plunger rotates up and down, and the plunger is also fixed. It can only give us as much fuel as a cam pressure, as much as the cam will allow it to travel on the rollers here. So it's fixed. It's not a variable. Yeah.